memories of this place that don't ever go away. It takes me back every time I drive by this location, because I drive up and down at least 2-3 times a week. 30 years ago, I came here with Ken, my dad. My dad had sent me downstairs to go wait in the truck. Unfortunately, I had to go to the bathroom, and I held as long as I could, and I finally decided to go upstairs. If I would have never had to go to the bathroom, I would have never walked back upstairs and never seen anything. This was the first time I had ever seen a dead body that was not in a casket. That's something that I can never get out of my head. Every time I go to sleep, I picture things along these lines.
So why'd you kill her? I didn't. Yes, you did, Ken. Again. As I told you before, evidence says you did. And what I went to court for then.
The stuff he did was stuff that would give most people nightmares for the rest of their lives. There's lots of people that didn't believe me. Lots of people thought I was joking. And they waited way too long, and too many people got hurt after that. I wouldn't believe the kid either. But they should have. I was born in Cleveland, given up for adoption. I was adopted at birth by my mom, Kathy. When I turned about 7 years old, she introduced me to the man she was planning to marry, and that was Ken. Not long after, we were sitting at the kitchen table, and I had heard some stories through church about Ken, and that he wasn't the greatest person.
Matt? Come sit down a minute.
My grandpa and my mom told me that Ken had went to prison. He had been convicted of a murder charge. I was told that he had ran away from home at 18 years old, and he had, and that was robbed, lost his life.
It was a long time ago. He didn't mean to kill anyone. He's sorry for what he did.
My grandpa said that Ken had made a bad choice, and that people make mistakes, and that's why it was okay to give him a second chance.
And we all have to learn how to forgive.
Ken served his time, 15 years. Just like anybody else, Ken deserves a second chance. And since he was out, then apparently other people thought he deserved a second chance as well.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So to me, being little for him to be out, then in my head he had done something to deserve to be out. There's lots of times I don't think Ken should have ever got out of prison the first time. If he wouldn't have got out of prison the first time, there would have been a lot of people that were saved. This was the kitchen table at the 7th Street home, and he was actually teaching me how to play 500 rummy. This was the kitchen table we were sitting when I first remember getting choked. One of the first positive memories I have of Ken was the card games. But it didn't take long after meeting my dad for me to start seeing other sides of him that not everybody saw. One afternoon, we were sitting down at the kitchen table, and he started to tell a story about getting into a fight in prison.
So the next thing you know, I have 3 guys have me cornered.
He had gotten jumped by 3 people, and he used a broom handle to defend himself and killed those people while he was in prison. I laughed at him and thought it was kind of like, yeah, right. And Then the next thing I know, I got a hand around my throat.
Are you calling me a liar?
He choked me and said, "Don't ever call me a liar." And I do remember hearing that over and over, "Don't call me a liar." My mom made him stop. And he never touched me like that ever again.
God, what are you doing, Ken? Are you crazy?
He never laid hands on me, but I've also made sure to never insinuate or call him a liar, whether I believed him or not. He liked to tell a lot of stories, and sometimes the stories became very wild. And I just, whether I believed the story, didn't believe the story, I never said I didn't believe him, because I knew how he would react if I called him a liar. He loved to teach me everything. I mean, he taught me how to hunt, trap, shoot guns, taught me how to do plumbing, electric, construction. He taught me everything that he could possibly teach me. Ken always felt that hunting and trapping was important. He had built a trapping room on the side of our garage, and he hung the animals in the back. And this was the first time I had ever went actually with him to trap beaver. And this was one of the beavers that we brought back. Sometimes going in the room bothered me, seeing some of the animals just hanging there. There was always animals either hanging in there or caged in there. This photo was taken about a year after the incident with the possum. We were out trapping one day, and there was a very large possum that had its legs stuck in a trap. And he had his pistol.
He's still alive. Here. Give me a stick.
But instead of just shooting the animal that was in the trap that day, he decided to take his little wooden, he called it his beater, but it's just basically a little wooden club. He smacked the possum the first time, and he kind of laughed because it didn't die. He just continued to hit it over, and then he'd wait, and he'd do it again. And it would either move or twitch, or it tried to stand up, and it would breathe, and he'd hit it again, and he'd back away again, and he'd laugh, and he's like, this thing won't die.
Look, he's fighting.
The entire time he was hitting the possum, he looked demented. His eyes were blank. He had a really weird smile on his face. I would say it was a sadistic smile. I've never seen him smile like that before. I'd seen him kill animals before, but that possum was just, I don't know, he looked like he was enjoying it. It had to be 5-10 minutes when it could have just been in a matter of seconds.
Let's go.
Once the possum was finally dead, he handed it to me and I had to carry it back to the truck.
Let's go.
It was upsetting. I've never seen him like that before, and I never understood it. But as I thought back about it, I thought, he had told me the story at the kitchen table about beating people with a broom handle, and then I saw him beat a possum with his little beater, as he called it. That was the first time in my memory that I thought maybe that story was completely true. I started to believe his stories more after that one. Ken always had guns, but he wasn't allowed to own a gun, being that he was in prison and he was a felon. That's why he always had them hidden. Ken had guns hidden under a fish tank he made. He had an old vintage Coke machine that had guns hidden in it, guns under the bed, guns in his trucks. His favorite gun was a 9x18 9mm. That gun traveled with him everywhere. I remember the first time he actually cleaned his gun in front of me. He would wipe off each round as he put it in the clip. He would have gloves on, so his prints weren't on the bullets. He told me every time I touched a gun to make sure I wiped it off completely.
You never want to leave your prints on a weapon.
And I was fascinated because I was listening to him tell stories.
Even when you got gloves, you can't take that chance.
He started to tell me about his past and stuff that he had done. Being a problem solver was his words for it. In Ken's own words, a problem solver was a hitman.
And when people ask me to solve their problems, this is the one I use.
And he claimed to be a problem solver for a few families.
But there are rules.
There were many jobs that he claimed to have done, many situations that he's claimed to have solved. I can think of probably 15 stories, at least, If he said he had a problem to take care of, he would disappear. He'd be gone for a few days. He'd come back a little bit different. He'd be a little more closed off.
Now get out of here. I'll be back in a few weeks.
I had seen movies that have had hitmen, so I had the basic idea of what a hitman was. I remember back then when I was little, I wasn't 100% sure. As I got older, I completely believed that he did that. He was a killer. When I first met Ken, we used to go to garage sales all the time. If there was a garage sale, he'd stop, because he always wanted to see what he could find and make money. One afternoon, we stopped at a yard sale, and there was a drafting table, drawing table. I love to color, I love to draw.
Ken, check this out.
When I saw the drafting table, I wanted it more than anything. I begged for it.
Can I get it, please?
Let me ask the lady.
And I remember there was a lady that was there. He started to negotiate with her at that point for the table.
How much for that table?
That table there's 85.
He kept trying to get it, but he didn't want to pay her price.
I'll give you 40 for it.
His favorite thing was to negotiate. And he couldn't negotiate it.
Come on.
But, Ken,
I said let's go now.
When we went to leave, he was his word would have been livid, that he couldn't get it for what he wanted it for. He kept saying, well, I'll get it. Or I'll get you one. We left the yard sale. He took me home, dropped me off, and he left me there. He left me at home for about an hour. He came back and picked me back up. And then we went back to the garage sale. The drafting table was already outside the garage, which wasn't where it was when we were there earlier. And he said that it was mine.
Wait here. I'm going to get the table.
There was nobody else at the garage sale. I did not see the woman at the garage sale any longer. I thought he went back, and I thought that maybe he went over there, negotiated, got it. I mean, he's persistent. So I didn't think anything of it.
Hurry up. Come help me. Hurry up.
The only change I noticed in Ken when we went back would be the fact that he was in a hurry. As soon as he came out of the garage, it was, it's time to go. We got to go. Let's load it. And we didn't even strap it down, which we always strap stuff. We load the drafting table up and we left. And I remember when he drove home a different way than we drove the first time. Within a matter of a couple days, the cops were at our door. And they're questioning him about somebody dying. Because somebody recognized the car at the house. The woman was dead. I didn't know who until later on. It might have been a couple years before I realized that the two were connected. Looking back now, I know he's the one that did it. And I know the cops know he did it. But the cops can't prove it. I was only at home, at the most an hour. And somewhere in that hour window, I believe she lost her life. I feel that me asking for the table is what cost her her life. And that's, that's something that I've lived with for, 30-some years? I want to say I'm sorry. I feel totally responsible. Totally. 100%. If I wouldn't have said it, then that wouldn't have happened. I don't think I've ever admitted that out loud. Ken always did odd jobs for everybody. He'd do everything from plumbing, work on bars, to do roofs, build garages, rip stuff down, move people. He often brought me along just to help him out. I was 12, maybe 13 years old. Ken took me along to another job. This time we were helping a friend of his, Patty, move some furniture from one apartment to another. Ken was the maintenance man for that building. We had taken some stuff up already, and Ken says, go ahead and wait in the car, I'll be down in a minute, and we'll get finished up.
This looks like the last of it.
I went down in the car and sat there. 5, maybe 10 minutes. I ended up having to go to the bathroom, and I walked up the steps to the new apartment. I turned right to go in the door. I turned the door handle, and I saw her laying there. I saw her bloody and naked. I knew she was dead, but I didn't know what had happened. Just seen her 10, 20 minutes earlier. I tried to block this memory out as much as possible through the years, but I remember I screamed. I screamed and screamed. He put his hand over my mouth and he forced me down the steps. My feet were barely touching the steps as I was going down them. He got me out as fast as possible.
What's going on?
I kept asking what happened, and I was told there was an accident. That's all I was ever told.
You understand?
I was told to say I was never there. As soon as I got home, I told my mom. I don't think my mom believed it. I think my mom was blinded to everything going on. My mom still tells me to this day that if she realized what was going on, she would have stopped it a long time ago. I remember being told that I pretty much didn't see what I saw. The cops were there to talk to him that day. The cops asked me if I was there, and I was told to tell them no. If I would have said yes, maybe the cops would have found a way to question me, but all of a sudden it was dropped. I mean, they didn't question him anymore. Once again, there was no evidence. Between the police releasing him, between everybody telling me that, you didn't see it, you weren't there, I started to doubt what I saw. I'm like, well, did I really see that? And every time the cops do show up, they question him and let him go. Maybe I'm the one that was seeing it wrong. Rationalizing what I saw, I kept trying to tell myself that it was like maybe she fell, it was an accident. When she was getting out of the shower, she fell and got hurt and he laid her there. I doubted myself for a very long time. The yellowish tan brick building behind me is where Patricia was killed. She didn't deserve what Ken did to her. She was one of the nicest women that I've ever met. I was joking around with her on the first trip up the stairs. Everything seemed to be fine, and next time I walked up, she was just laying there. We came out the open door right there to the left of the electric meters, and we got into the vehicle right here in the middle of what would have been in the middle of the white brick building, and we left. I believe what happened had to have been quick. At least I hope it was quick. I hope that it wasn't drawn out, and I hope she didn't lay there when he took me away and potentially suffer. I believe he strangled her. I have somewhat of a vision in my head of what I saw, but I was told for a long time that I didn't see what I saw. He just kept saying that there was an accident and we had to get out. I had just seen her, everything was fine moments before. Now you're naked in the middle of the floor. It's not an accident. Ken did a lot of home improvement jobs. He also installed security systems. And Ken had previously installed an alarm system on a home, and he told me I needed to come with him to help him fix a problem that they were having with his alarm. We showed up, and the woman that lived there said she was getting ready to make cookies. We were working on the alarm system. Ken seemed actually relatively happy. I mean, I didn't see any issues. I didn't see anything wrong. I was in the bedroom. He was in the living room, dining room area. And I heard a very loud pop, bang, very loud noise, like extremely loud. I was like, hey, Dad, what was that? I was like, you're all right. And he answers back, but I knocked something over and I broke it. He was like, I'll tell you when we get outside.
Keep doing what you were doing.
He was like, stay there and I'll get done. He finished fishing the thing through the wall. We hooked the wire up and we finished the alarm system and we went to leave. I walked by the room and you could see into the living room. She was in the living room when we left on the couch, ice pack on her forehead.
Don't wake her.
I asked what was going on.
She's not feeling well. She's taking a nap.
He said the woman had a headache and went to lay down. He had helped her make an ice pack.
Here, take this.
He handed me his blue handkerchief that he always carried. He had me wipe off the door handle, the alarm panel, the inside and outside of the door as we carried everything out. Which I thought was kind of weird. He was like, when you close the door, use your rag. He's like, we don't want to leave dirt marks. He made sure I was the one that wiped it off, and I set the alarm, and I closed the door, and then we left. That was the weird part, was why would we set the alarm with her in the house? Within a matter of 2 days, I had heard it on the radio. I had heard she had died. I had heard she got shot. Apparently her husband came home and didn't realize that she was deceased at the time. thought she was just laying on the couch with a headache, and it took him a while to realize that she was gone. Early the next day, once again the police were at our door. Then it started to click. What was going on? But once again, nobody believed me. I mentioned to a therapist that I had had. My therapist pretty much told me that I was exaggerating, that I didn't know what I was talking about, which seemed to always be every adult's answer. There's lots of people that didn't believe me. Lots of people thought I was joking. And I told my mom that I thought he did it, and she thought I was exaggerating. I also talked to Ken, and I asked him why this kept going on, and his response was, oh, it's just BS. Every time that there's a murder in Canton, they come to me. I'm freshly out of jail. And when he said that, I'm like, okay, well, maybe. I wanted to believe him, and I didn't want to think he was capable of something like that.
Are you okay? You got nothing to worry about.
Every few years, the cops were at my house. Every few years, he was accused of murdering somebody. Nothing ever happened. If they had evidence, they would have arrested him, but they never arrested him. If the cops didn't think he did it, then why should I think he did it? Then I heard that the husband got questioned. People were saying, oh, it was the husband. I thought, well, maybe the husband came home and they got into a fight. So I, once again, tried to, in my head, brush it off. A few years after the last incident, Ken got into an altercation with a friend/business partner, and it wound him back up in prison for about 5 years. By the time Ken got out of prison, my life had changed a lot. Him and my mom were divorced. I was already planning on getting married. Before I met my wife, I had 2 children with a prior relationship. For years, I had been in a really nasty battle over custody of my 2 oldest children, and it really caused me a lot of stress. And Ken was aware of everything that it was causing me. At the wedding, right before we were married, my fiancée Mindy came up to me.
You're not going to believe what your dad just said to me.
And said that Ken had offered to kill my baby's mom as a wedding gift.
Please tell me you're kidding.
She 100% thought he was joking, but I knew it was a real offer because I knew Ken's history, I knew Ken's path.
Babe, he wasn't serious.
Yes, he was.
I came to the realization that I believed he had killed the 3 women prior. When he made that offer at my wedding, pretty much confirmed everything I had ever thought. And I immediately looked at Mindy and said, he's dead serious. Please tell me you said no.
What did you tell him?
Of course I said no.
I had no doubt in my mind that if we would have said yes within 2 weeks, that would have been the end of my oldest kid's mom. This was my wedding to my wife. This was about 10 minutes prior to when he offered to, as a wedding present, to kill my ex. He was beyond dead serious. I'm glad my wife said no. But he made that offer here, and an hour and a half, 2 hours later, when the wedding's over, he's sitting downstairs sharing his plate of food with my youngest son. It shows exactly what I dealt with the entire time. One minute he would be the guy that was in this picture that made the offer. The next minute he would be one of the nicest people in the world that would give you his shirt off their back. When I saw him sitting there holding my son and feeding my son sausage with my son on his lap, I looked at him and said, there's still a chance to make him a decent person. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried. Fortunately, it didn't work. When I first heard about Linda Smith's death, it was from an article I read in the local newspaper. I had met Linda Smith numerous times. Ken had done odd home improvement jobs for one of her friends, she had been at our home to have many cookouts and parties that Ken had on our property. And the weekend prior to her death, she was at a cookout at our home. I had read that she was murdered, and I had read that it was a gruesome scene. And when I heard the description, somewhere inside of me, I knew it was him. He was just over there. The first time I got to talk to him, he was loading his truck out back. I asked Ken if he had heard about it.
I just heard about Linda.
He was like, yeah, I heard it. He was like, I'm pretty sure they'll be here to question me before long. But this time I wasn't a kid.
You going someplace?
Yeah, I'm going to a buddy's house for a few days. Waiting for this to blow over.
And I said, well, what do you want me to say if they come? Just tell them I'm out of town and you don't know where I am.
I gotta get going.
I had no doubt at all that it was him that had done it. And I wasn't lying for him. I wasn't going to say, no, I didn't know where you were. I wasn't going to say you were out of town. I reached out to the police department and said, hey, you need to look at Ken. And they had me come in and they questioned me.
So what makes you think your dad's the one who did this?
And I gave the police details of what I thought happened. She was either strangled with this or this, and I started describing details of the murder scene without ever being there.
You seem to know an awful lot. Sure you weren't there?
And they said that I knew some details that were there that I shouldn't know for being somebody that wasn't there. And they were like, how do you know these details? I said, because they match another one.
What other ones?
They had put me on to a lie detector test at that point in time. After a while, they realized that I wasn't lying.
Listen, if you're right, you could really help us out here.
And they asked if they thought I could get him to talk. They said, does he trust you? Will he talk about things in front of you? I was like, yes, he tells me stories all the time.
I'm supposed to see him this week.
That's when they had me wear a wire for the first time. It's 3:53, January 3rd. I'm going to Ferraro's to meet Ken Roth and have a conversation with him. I'm going to leave the recording on the whole way there, so it's already on and hidden. Every time I wore a wire, I was always conflicted. It was always a toss-up between the guy I wanted to put in jail and my dad. When they have you back in there again?
The other night, they called me at 8 o'clock in the evening and asked me all the same damn questions.
I went out of my way to try to get Ken to admit to stuff. I tried to get him to talk about Linda, and I tried to get him to talk about the 3 months growing up.
They think it might have been her husband, but they have no proof, no evidence, no nothing. Right now they're the dead.
Oh, it's like they were all the other ones. I was trying to get anything and everything that the cops could use as leverage to get him to admit to murdering Linda.
The paper said she was strangled.
I never read the paper. I didn't even get to see it. He would have never thought that I would have been the one wearing a wire. Which is why I knew that if anybody was going to get him to admit anything, it was going to be me.
So it had to be somebody who either had keys for that house or knew her real well, because her keys were in the house with her. And yet nothing's missing, they said. All her rings, her jewelry, everything was still there. So it had to be somebody she knew. They asked me if I knew who it was. I said no.
The times I wore a wire, he always had his gun on his hip. Always. So every time that I was sitting there talking to him and he had his gun, I'd think, what would he do if he knew I was wearing it? And I knew he would have shot me. And that kept pushing me back to the reality. Par for course. You know how they act. You know how it is.
Oh yeah. Like I told them, I can play their dumb games as long as they can keep playing them.
That was one of the times I wore a wire to try to get him to admit to stuff. I was pushing the issue quite a bit more there than I normally would have. Because I was afraid he would hurt somebody else. I was afraid of what he would do to the next person, or how many next people there would have been. I kept fishing for a long time to see if I could get him to admit something. And I think that around that point in time is when he realized, too, that I was up to something. I have no way of knowing for a fact how he found out. But I believe that he found some way to realize that I was talking to the police. And I realized realized that he was even more dangerous than I thought he was. After I started speaking with the police, I noticed some strange things happening. A truck ran me and my son off of the road next to our home and put us into a ditch. Somebody came in our house and loosened plumbing under 3 different sinks at once, to the point that our house was filling with water. Next night, somebody went and opened all of our house windows. People started disconnecting our car batteries. Then stuff started coming up missing. Like a picture might be moved from one room to another, or a picture of all of us might be gone. Only one other person had a key to our house, and that was Ken. I started to realize that maybe it was a message to shut up. That night, we were all in the living room. We were just kind of hanging out like we always do, getting ready to watch some TV. All of a sudden, I noticed a light, a red dot, shows up on, like, my chest. It hit me right here.
What the hell is that?
And the light started to move on the wall and towards where my oldest son was. And before it could get to my oldest son, I yelled for Minnie to turn off the light and get down.
Shut off the lights.
I shoved my son to the floor. It wasn't one of those little pens like you shine through somebody's window. I've seen laser lights on weapons before, and that's exactly what it was. It was not a laser pointer. It was actually a laser sight off of a rifle or a pistol. And I know Ken had one on a rifle, and I know he had a laser sight on a pistol. I was so scared. I don't think I've ever been that scared personally in my life.
Go that way. Go. Stay down.
I believe it was Ken that was trying to scare me because I had information and I knew details that nobody else knew. And he knew that. We kept the lights off. I ended up moving everybody into it. It was the night that we decided that we were going to get a U-Haul and leave. We were going to leave everything. I gave up everything. My whole life. My whole career. And moved into a basement for the next 2 years. We didn't tell anybody where we lived. We basically just hid. Got a call from a friend that told me that there was 20 to 30 cop cars surrounding the house, cops everywhere. Ken wound up getting arrested for a weapons charge to where a felon's not allowed to own a firearm. So they arrested him and he was given 2 years in prison. During that time, the investigation into the murder of Linda Smith had picked up. A new sheriff had taken over and was really pushing to make sure Ken did not get out of prison after the 2 years.
So let's go to the 2009 homicide, Linda Smith.
About a year later, he was charged with the murder of Linda Smith.
Tell me about your relationship with her, how you know her.
I did some work for her, put lights in for her, in her basement, GFI, and hauled some furniture for her.
I wasn't sure exactly what leverage they had, but I thought they finally got some leverage to do something.
So why'd you kill her?
I didn't.
Yes, you did, Ken. Again, as I told you before, evidence says you did.
And take me to court for it then.
Me and my wife went to the trial every single day, and we sat right behind where Ken's seat was, next to the family of Linda Smith. But I was there to support the family, not Ken.
I just want to know why you did it.
I didn't.
You did.
So, believe what you want.
You were seen at her house, Ken.
I've been at her house quite a few times working.
It was weird hearing his voice after this long. He was never going to admit it. He'd never make it that easy. It angered me that nobody believed me, because if people would have believed me and people would have listened to me over the years and all the times that I had came and told anybody, therapists, anybody, then she would have been alive. I actually did feel validated. I know that sounds selfish, but I had told people for many years what was going on. messaged me and reached out to me on social media in person and said, hey, look, I'm sorry I never believed you. But half of me thought I did the right thing, and half of me was like, I just gave up my dad. Lost a lot of family because the family didn't want to admit he did it. I actually had a family member tell me that I should have been grateful and shut my mouth. Can't believe you ratted your dad out. I can't believe you're a snitch. Part of me was saddened because I knew that would be the last time I ever saw him in person. Once he went to prison, I never reached out again. I never attempted to talk to him. I debated writing him letters, but I never did. Wish I would have. I wish I would have wrote him and asked him why and seen if I could get him to tell me why he did what he did. Now that he's gone, I regret it even more because I'll never get the answers that I wanted. He was diagnosed with COVID. He ended up going into a coma, and while in a coma, his bowels burst and he died. I immediately got super depressed. I went in the bathroom and actually got in the shower and locked myself in the bathroom for a couple hours. I didn't want to come out. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I didn't want to look at nobody. I was already feeling guilty. I was the one that helped put him there, and I was the one that made him die alone. And that's the part that I felt guilty on. It wasn't the fact that he was spending the rest of his life in prison. It was the fact that he had to suffer and die alone. He deserved to live his life sentence out in prison. I don't think he deserved to die the way he did in prison. And that's something that I have to figure out how to deal with. It's the good dad that I grew up with. I miss the man that taught me how to shoot a gun and trap an animal, and as much as I love him for being my dad, part of me hates him for putting me through everything that he put me through. I don't think there's enough evidence and enough people remaining alive that were around at that point in time to solve any of those. The only way that the family of those three women will ever know is if they watch me say that I think he did it, and that I was there. That's why it's always been important for me to tell my story. I'd like some of the families to have some type of closure. He's never going to be convicted, but I can tell you he did it. And I'm sorry. I should have screamed louder. I should have said something. Maybe me telling my story will also potentially lead to other things found, other connections made. I know there were other murders. Every story he told me couldn't have been a lie. I have no doubt in my mind that there's many, many more.